cracking episode for you today. Just after the resurrection, we asked the question, have we invented God in the face of death?
And welcome to TGI Monday. If you're watching this on the day that it's broadcast, happy Easter Monday. Did we all have a nice Easter? And we can all forward our thoughts to next week and say, yes, we did.
Absolutely wonderful.
I like quite a lot of chocolate in my Easter. And particularly this year, my birthday is on Easter Sunday. So I'm looking forward to extra special large amounts of chocolate.
Sorry, were you looking around there with a decided hint?
Well,
I'm looking for extra special.
All right, Ross. So there has been a little bit of a palaver this year, hasn't there, about whether chocolate and Easter should be inextricably linked, or whether it's okay to eat your eggs if they're not Easter eggs. What do we think about this? Is it okay for everyone to just, have as much chocolate as they like, no matter what?
Well, I think possibly not if they're going to have health problems. I'm not sure diabetics should be eating loads of chocolate.
Nice. I'm not sure that was Theresa May's main objection.
Perhaps
so you
it
may have
should
seen
have
this. The National Trust Easter egg hunt is now just the National Trust egg hunt, I think. And lots of people have been weighing in about whether that's,
bonkers, completely bonkers, because the poster said celebrate Easter. So if the debate on that stuff should be about whether you should just look at the source before you talk about anything.
Yeah.
And actually, there are loads of different ways of being joyful on Easter Sunday. So chocolate brings a lot of joy to a lot of people. So I have no problem with going all in with the chocolate.
I kept out. I had no idea. I didn't read any articles on any of this, so I got no knowledge on it. But what I will say is, when I take my kids into the supermarket and I see Easter eggs just stacked up high, I can't help thinking there's something not particularly healthy about that focus when it's all about chocolate and the magic of chocolate. Just for not for religious reasons, but for my kids.
Simnel cakes.
Oh,
All my kids then want is to eat mounds of chocolate, and they think it's okay to eat enormous amounts of chocolate, and that has enormous health implications.
For one day in the year.
But I think it's interesting that our diocesan Easter book is about dethroning mammon.
The church
The idea that perhaps consumerism isn't actually all it's cracked up to be, and yet Easter is all about these eggs. Yeah, cracking. And chocolate and selling chocolate and cards. Do you know, getting Easter cards, people sending them to each other. Why are they sending them to each other?
We're not quite at the level of Christmas, but you're right, it does seem like it's heading in that direction a bit, doesn't it? Well, we are dealing with a question today that I think relates not really to chocolate, but at least to Easter. So, there's my little segue in there. And this is a question that a friend of Zoe's has sent in. And she asks, was God just invented because people were afraid of death? Was God just invented because people were afraid of death? Who wants to start us off on that? Paul, what do you think?
Oh, thank you. I've brought a picture for this one.
Great.
Because one of the best quotes I heard between atheism debate and theism debate was by John Lennox in response to a quote by Stephen Hawking. Now, you've probably all heard of Stephen Hawking, and I'm going to show you the quote there. I'll read it out for you. Stephen Hawking, professor of astrophysics at Cambridge.
Mathematics, I think, actually. The Ocasian professor of mathematics.
Okie doke. He's a prof at Cambridge.
Says the physicist.
Amazing.
Yes, of Oxford. His quote is, "Heaven is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark." To which Professor of Mathematics at Oxford, a Christian, John Lennox, replied, "Atheism is a fairy story for those afraid of the light." Touché.
Back of the net.
And if you get a chance, after watching this YouTube video, put in John Lennox into YouTube. You'll find great, interesting debates.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It reminds me of a favourite quote of mine from a children's book I read years and years ago, which I still read because I love it. That basically, it's faith either way. either you trust that there is no God, and therefore you live your life in that way, or you trust that there is a God. And actually, there's evidence. It's not kind of a blind decision, but it is a decision about trust either way, isn't it? Are you going to trust God or trust that there's no God?
And you talked about how to live your life any other way, and that's actually kind of my response to the question is, well, twofold. One is that it's not a very good invention, because most people actually still are afraid of death, and Christians, I meet Christians every day, as we all do, who are still frightened of death. There's so many unanswered questions about that
death
stuff.
Is programmed into us. We weren't frightened of death.
No, exactly.
Walking in front of cars, it's quite natural. There's no shame.
No,
in
exactly.
being frightened of death and looking to God.
No, exactly.
In that time.
Of course not. And death is massive. But
unfortunately, that's where that argument comes from. That you're scared of death, and therefore that's why you believe in God, as if that's something to be ashamed of. But if you're in hospice ministry, for example, and you're working with people who are facing death every day, then actually there is a huge amount of comfort that comes with knowing that your future is one of peace and joy with God.
But that affects how we live our life.
It affects how we live.
Yeah.
But having said that,
not just death.
certainly people, I don't actually know anyone I've ever come across, and I'm sure there are many, but who've become Christians because they're scared of death. What happens is, and this is my experience, I became a Christian when I was 15. I had no fear of death. I thought I had another 60 years ahead. I didn't even think about death. Why I became a Christian was because I fell in love with Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
A lot of people do start asking the question, though, at that point, when they are facing.
Absolutely. But also, there are plenty of people who realise that when they face bereavement, that going to church and learning about God actually does provide them with a lot of support.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily that a fear brings them into church or to God, but that actually compassion and the love of Jesus and the love of other Christians sometimes does bring them a real sense of comfort in the face of death.
Yes.
When you've got nowhere else to go, that's quite often, God is so often the last resort. But yeah, consistently there in lots of different ways, but that shapes your life more than as a reaction to being afraid of dying.
Something I was thinking about when I was thinking about this question is the sort of universal experience of mankind, and you do see all around the world in different places in different ways that sense of our lives being more than just this life, and that sort of yearning for still being in some way part of the existence of a greater whole, exactly, and part of the universe beyond death. And obviously different cultures have come up with different explanations for that sense, but I think that is there. And in Ecclesiastes it talks about how God has set eternity in the hearts of man, and I think that is a very real experience for people.
Well, it's usually experiences that send people to, so I'm only a Christian because I experienced God,
exactly.
not because I thought I needed a God.
But I think there is, I guess I want to say, I think there is an element of truth in the question, that fear of death, but also that sense of wanting there to be something more, does lead people to kind of think, well, what is that greater whole? And very often the answer has been, well, it's some kind of God. But that's not to say there isn't a God, just because for some cases it's gone that way. And actually there are reasons why we want to look and, like you said, Dan, falling in love with Jesus and the reality of who he is, and particularly the reality of the resurrection on Easter Sunday morning, that gives us that great hope of something beyond death. And that's not untrue, and that's not made up just because we all have that longing for it to be true.
Yeah, I was going to say, just because we have a meaning in life that we can see if there is a God, doesn't mean that there isn't a God who wants us to find meaning in life.
Exactly that. So it's not just, that thing of if there was no God, it would be necessary to break it very gently to the Pope.
And sometimes...
to invent him is the real
break
it very gently.
Sometimes the accusation is made to make people who believe in God look weak.
Yes.
Crutch for the weak.
It's a crutch for the weak.
Yeah.
And, so for many years, Christians have said, look, it's not a crutch, actually, it is a comfort. But in many ways it is, because we are all weak. We are all facing death. We are all in need. And actually to have God there does give us enormous amounts of strength. That's not something to be ashamed of, that's something to delight in and to want to share with other people, because we all in our humanity have these exact same fears and concerns about the future. And like you said, Mary, there's a great compassion that goes along with that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, I think we all seem to be in agreement.
Oh my goodness.
That makes a change.
It does. Recently we've
bombshell.
been having... So thank you for the question. We know this is a real live issue for many people, whether you're facing your own death or whether, as we talked about, you've been recently bereaved or in, whatever your situation is. So please do feel free to get in touch with us and share your thoughts and experiences on that question as well. Thanks for watching. Please do like us on Facebook, share us on Twitter, and get in touch if you've got questions. You can't believe half of what you read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln.